I want to show you how to take annuals, things that you have to plant every year, and perennials, things that come back every year that you might have incorporated into your landscape, and make some really cool flower arrangements with them. So I have different size vessels, and I'm going to show you how to put together some different looks to bring that last bit of outside inside. I'm going to give you a little refresher of why I hacked away at all these beautiful garden plants. Heading into fall, they start to fizzle. A lot of the plants that we enjoy seasonally, for example, like in a 4-season climate, originate from warmer areas. And while we're lucky enough to enjoy them during the growing season, so that's usually like April-ish to like October-ish, they're not going to make it through the winter. So my thought is like, let's bring a little bit of that life inside so we can enjoy it a little bit longer. As we creep towards the solstice, that's when you'll really kind of start to see your outside plants change. There's just not as much daylight, and the cooler evening temperatures will change the plants where they won't be growing as much. They'll start to get spotty, they'll start to fizzle out, and it's really too late in the season to do any more fertilizing or anything like that. I know we harvested all this beautiful plant material, but what if things could just be easy? What if we could take 3 pieces of fan palm, put them in a giant modern vase, and here we have a clean, bright, natural looking arrangement with 0 effort. So when you're dealing with big plants, you can create a big impact fast. And sometimes it's okay to just let it be easy. So I'm going to set this aside. Could definitely add more, but I don't want to. I want to just enjoy those gorgeous green leaves. And when you put this inside, maybe against a white wall or in an area of your home that maybe doesn't have as much going on, like these suckers are going to stand out. So one of the next things that I want to show you is working with those gorgeous ginger stems that we harvested. So these are big, and again, I think just like on their own, they are so pretty. So that's an option to just straight up go ahead and put your leafy green stuff in simple clean vases, and it will tell its own story. But we're going to, of course, add a few things to make it a little bit more exciting. So if you recall that gorgeous grass that I harvested, we have a big vessel here. So I'm going to make this a big arrangement. And this is the ones that has like the pink hue and tint to it. So when we are putting plants in vases, this wasn't an issue with this one here, but what we typically want to do is take off all the leafy stuff, because that leafy stuff, bacteria will form on it and eventually start eating it, and it will shorten the life of our plants. So since I'm going with a big arrangement here, we kind of working in, like, if we think about ratios, like sort of thirds, I'm going to cut this down just a little bit. Luckily, I work it outside here, so I'll just come clean up all this stuff on the ground later. So I'm going to stick this in the backdrop because it's nice and tall. This was one of our grasses that we let go sort of all winter. We'll let it die out. It acts as a sound barrier, a windbreak, and then it will come back in the spring. So when I put it in the vase, it was kind of bunched up. I just literally spread it. We have a nice big backdrop there. In order to make this front look sort of filled out, I'm going to need to pick a taller plant. And one of the few taller plants that I had chosen was our really pretty peace lilies. And I think a lot of people think of this as a house plant, and it definitely is and can be, but it has a place outside too in the warm weather months in a shady area. So I want to take advantage of the scale that we have here, and I'm going to throw in these big, beautiful peace lily blooms. Our eyeballs like odd multiples, so I'm lucky enough that these two were similar height. This one's taller, so I have a nice sort of tiered effect here. I'm going to judge the height. This is the same, so I probably need to cut it down so that it's a similar height to this other one. And then I've got little empty spots here. I'm going to put those in the middle. And I think this could easily be done as it is. But since we have some of our gorgeous parlor palms that are kind of nice and drapey. They have this natural arc to them. I'm going to put a couple of those in the front to fill out for me and maybe do a little draping over the front. So that will just do a nice little fill in the front. I'm going to look for ones that are a little bit more kind of drapey on their own. And you want to make sure everything gets in the water. And to me, again, we have like a clean, modern aesthetic here. I think that is gorgeous. We have different textures with our leaves. We have some pink color here. We have the peace lily shining, which normally we don't think of a peace lily flower shining, but there she is in all her glory. One of my next things that I'm going to work with was our beautiful purple leaves in our cordyline family. And if you remember, I kind of did like a contrasting look with them. So I'm going to work with 5 cordyline leaves. And I'm going to work with my corn plant, is what this is called. It's in the Dracaena family. So to build the base, you can kind of think about what direction you want to see your vase from. I'm going to have this spout be the front part. And those are pretty tall for this scale of vase, so they'll need to be cut down. What's great is there isn't a lot of foliage down here, so I can just kind of hack at them. Put those in our backdrop. And they're not perfect, but most plants in our garden aren't perfect. And trying to be perfect is kind of boring. It's repetitive. It's confining. So I'm gonna not worry that these plants aren't perfect. Now, if I were selling this for money, right? Like I would maybe think about that, but you're just trying to remember, bring some of these plants inside. Remember how beautiful your garden was while it was growing. By adding in the bright color leaf in between the dark color leaf, it really helps it sing. It helps it pop. It helps the darker leaf stand out a little bit more. So I want to play on the shape of this vessel with some of my begonias. So I'm going to make sure that I got the leaves off the bottom. I'm going to let them sort of hang out. I think that one was it's a little too drapey. It looks like it's dying. It looks too drapey. And I am going to fill something here in the middle yet, but I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. You know what would be great here is a couple of our sedum, because I've got the dark purple here playing on the dark purple here. Strip them. And I want them to kind of play in between this height of the begonias and our leafy items. So I want them to sit about right here. So by holding this flower up, I can kind of see how much I need to chop off. I'm going to make my middle flower just a little bit taller than my other ones. It's going to sit there. Those are going to sit, they're going to kind of hug in here. She is definitely funky. Okay. Like this is probably not something that you would pick up at a flower shop, but not everything has to be tailored, or it doesn't have to be commercial finish to everything. So let's see what I can do to make her a little bit less funky. By adding our fern leaves, to me, ferns, this is a Boston fern. Ferns are just kind of soft. And let's see if we can soften it up a little bit with some Boston fern. I'm going to add some to the front of these so that they can kind of perk up a little bit. To do that, I want a little bit more of a mass of a plant down there to have the strength to create a surface to hold them. So I'm going to strip those. I'm going to lift those gals up. And then they kind of create a little bit more of an accent. So we have a flowy. So think about this like up on a mantle, or think about it like on the edge of a shelf. This is definitely like nothing you would get at a commercial store, but it is definitely interesting. It's definitely fun, and it certainly is one of a kind. Okay, we've done some funky things. Let's bring in a little softness and a little bit of pretty. So I harvested my sedum. This was a perennial, a plant that comes back every year. There are different shades of sedum. This one is a little bit more on the pinker side. There's some that are a little bit more orange, some that are a little bit more red. I think these just in a vase on their own, ready to go. Absolutely beautiful. But let's see what we can do utilizing some of our other flowers that we harvested today. So I am going to kind of leave them hang out so I can play around a little bit with them. And if I'm kind of going for a little bit of a softer look, I have another grass that I harvested here. I'm going to do a 360 look with this flower arrangement so that no matter where I put it, it looks similar from all the sides and has interest from all the sides. So I need to kind of tier my grasses here. I'm going to stick one up a little higher, one down, one kind of medium ground to really give us some real height. And of course, I always want to peel my stuff off the bottom so that bacteria doesn't grow in the water. Set those aside for a moment. And I'm going to bring to light some of our geraniums because these are kind of soft, a little bit girly, a little bit floofy. So I'm going to kind of lay these, seed them out flat, and I'm going to put my grasses in the middle. And I'm going to build the sedum back around it. I will pull this grass up. I have this new spider friend here. And when I put this in the vase, it's going to be a little bit looser so they will kind of fall nicely together. If I were in a floral shop, they would maybe like put the tape across. I normally have enough plant material. I'm lucky enough I have enough plant material that I can work with. I don't have to do that. So I'm going to kind of spread these fellas out. And listen, y'all, I know they are funky, but I have a funky taste for flower arrangement. And to me, these like brown tops on this grass, to me, they scream fall. And that is where we're headed. So to kind of fill in around, we have our high ground, our mid ground. I'm going to get some low ground. I'm going to work in these geranium buds. When you're kind of going around a vase, the odd multiple thing doesn't matter as much. But, and I might I've got a little hole there. I'll throw one in the middle. I'll throw another one here. So I have them around the edge. I might put 3 in the center here to kind of make it balanced. Here we have a little bit of a softer look. To me, I don't know, that almost like hints at spring, but we have incorporated perennials and annuals from our garden. Okay, next, I wanted to show you all how to work with the chili plants that we were growing. So it's an annual flower. They die out every year. I don't save a ton of seeds because usually plants are pretty affordable at garden centers in the spring, but you can save the seeds. They're very prolific, and sometimes they will grow back in an area that you left them in. So they have this cool kind of branchy texture here. I am not stripping these with my hand because even though they are just cute little ornamental peppers, they pack a real punch and a real bite. And if you get your cute little fingers on them, they will burn the heck out of you. One summer, I did not know that, and I harvested. I was stripping them. I was making flower arrangements. And then I went in the house for the day to wash my face, and I was absolutely wrecked for 6 hours. I was putting olive oil and milk and all sorts of crazy stuff on my face. So we have this really fun sort of like a canopy that's happening here. So I want to get just a little bit of height, a little bit of interest. So this was another marigold that I hacked off at the base. So I'm going to see what I can harvest out of it. I want to work with some longer stems, and it's kind of nice. The plant's already doing a little bit of a tiering thing for me. So you just want to make sure it gets in the water. A lot of times when I'm working with annuals, you have to really make sure that your water vessel is filled so the plants don't dry out on you. So I'm going to try to do 3 chunks of these guys. This one's a little short, but look at this fella. We have a nice tall one here. So while these aren't going to be, like stems you would get from the grocery store, depending on your vessel, like in a bouquet at the grocery store, depending on your vessel, they will still work real hard for you. So it looks like we're sort of developing like a front facing arrangement here. So I'm going to see what I can poke up in the back to create a little bit of interest. So this is a philodendron leaf. And a lot of times in flower arrangements, we'll just kind of see green on green on green. So I'm going to layer them to create a more dense effect in the back here and kind of create a nice little hug. So I'm pulling these and tucking it back here. So a lot of people will bring their philodendrons in for the winter. That is one plant that overwinters a little bit better than some. A lot of times people will harvest, cut them back a little bit before they bring them inside. So you may as well sort of enjoy the leaves before you bring them inside. This to me looked like it needed a little bit more balance. Luckily, I have another pepper plant here. It's not normally my angle that I work from. So see, I had a little bit of a hole over here. I'm going to put that lady there. And who would have thought you could have a marigold, pepper, philodendron flower arrangement inside? Again, I know it's a little funky, but it's kind of fun. Like, it's probably not something that you would buy at a store, but why not enjoy it? So one of the last arrangements that I'm going to do, this was our salvia. It definitely has a strong smell. If you don't love the smell outside, you're not going to love it inside because it is strong, kind of peppery. It's definitely like botanical sort of notes. So I've got this little lady here, and I've got a fun single leaf that I'm going to put it up against. I have some smaller ferns here. I think these are a little bit more attractive than like my bigger guy. So for this scale of arrangement, I'm going to work with my little fellas up front there. And would you believe that this is about 12 inches? This sucker is going to go in my little mason jar. Oh, we wrapped her up so nicely. Is going to get tucked in my little mason jar. And what an impact we have in just a little mason jar, one leaf, couple of fern leaves, couple of our perennial flowers. Salvia is usually very abundant. And we've got a complete little look there. And that's something you could really do all year round when you're growing plants outside, because you're not going to miss one leaf. You're not going to miss like 5 or 8 little salvias. You're not going to miss a couple of fern leaves. So while we're kind of talking about how to make the most of your flowers at the end of the season, this is definitely something you could do throughout the growing season. So this was the arrangement that I kind of made on the spot. We had our geraniums, we had our orange marigold. So before I put it in the vase, I'm going to strip off some of my plant material to keep it from rotting in the vase. And for this, I'm going to let the parlor palms in a grouping kind of stand out. They can be more impactful if there's a big group. Those are just going to kind of set behind there. The cordyline would be an option if you wanted a little bit of a larger scale. I'm going to stick those in. This is just a couple of minutes. These would have been fine just on their own, the marigolds and the geranium, but I added a little bit of height, a little bit of interest, and I want to give you permission to just enjoy some green stuff in a little vase. During the winter, I live in a 4-season climate. I get the blues when there's no green stuff growing. Seasonal affective disorder sets in. I get kind of crabby. I will go to the flower shop and I will buy a bundle of greens. And as long as you change the water frequently, they will last for weeks and months. So especially like around Christmas, I like to get the magnolia leaves. So even that is so pretty. And I know a lot of people struggle with growing like house plants in their home. If you struggle with growing house plants, maybe because of light, or your house is really dry, or it's just not your thing, but you want to have some plant life in your home, you could definitely do something like picking up some greenery at a florist and letting it hang out in a little vase or a little cup. So we're going to put everything out here. Hopefully there's room for my head. Okay, well, this was our end of season wrap up. So in about 30 minutes, I harvested all of these plants. I gathered vases. I organized them. I put them in arrangements, and now I'll have flower arrangements that will last for weeks, perhaps even something like this. This fella here will last for months. Feel free, as things deteriorate, maybe these geranium buds go first. Pick the geranium buds out, enjoy the sedum, snip the stems so that the plants can continue to uptake water. Maybe these ferns fizzle before the salvia. Maybe one of your parlor palm stems gets yucky. Just pull it out. So feel free to kind of arrange, move around, rearrange, and enjoy the outside, inside for one last stretch.